understand it. I don't get it. I won't ever understand it.
You don't know that.
Yeah, I do. I'm 44 years old.
Okay, then just shut up and let me talk.
Go.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 From Art to Atoms,
The Ultimate Curiosity Show.
I'm Brandon Shoemaker.
I'm Michael Foles.
All right, so while Michael sits here playing this color by numbers game on his iPad, how appropriate given our topic for tonight, well, we're going to title this episode, Is It Art? An Exploration of Abstract Art. So to give a little bit of background before we dive into the topic, over the past 4 years, I have kind of started on a journey myself as an artist, as specifically an abstract artist. I have begun painting
Weird stuff.
abstract art ever since right around the pandemic is when it got started. So my whole life, and even in school and into college, I had taken art classes and I had explored mostly drawing. I've always loved to draw, and I drew and still do from time to time, for the most part, photorealism drawing. And I enjoy it. I'm relatively decent at it. I don't want to toot my own horn and say I'm great or anything, but I've been told that I'm good. But I never really had mastered painting techniques. And growing up, drawing photorealism, I assumed that was what I needed to be pursuing in the medium of painting as well. And so I'll never forget, it was during the COVID lockdown. I spent the COVID lockdown actually here, even though I was living in Charlotte at the time. I spent the COVID lockdown here in Texarkana with Michael and Thomas because I didn't want to be stuck in an apartment by myself for however long that was going to turn out. So I'm grateful that I did that. But in the process, I wanted to start painting again. And I'll never forget one evening when I was sitting at their dining room table, kind of all hunched over my little miniature desktop easel and painting. Michael's husband, Thomas, came into the room and he was just observing me, and he said, I thought that painting was supposed to relax you. And I was very tense with my shoulders up around my ears, and I was working on this very fine detail in the painting. And I said, well, I've never gotten that experience from painting. And after lockdown ended, I went back home and I continued painting. I remember distinctly one evening where I cleared my palette after I was using a minimal palette with just the primary colors, and I just scraped it off of the palette, and the colors smearing together as I scraped them off, I found just completely beautiful. And I remember thinking, well, gosh, I wish I had just made this my painting and called it a day. And that was really my first observation, I guess you could say, moving in the direction of abstract art. And then after I moved here to Texarkana, I saw a painting that really spoke to me in a gallery window. It was with vibrant blues and golds and silver and white. I don't recall how much the painting was. It was thousands of dollars. It was probably a 3 foot by 3 foot canvas. But I remember thinking, I can do that. So I went home and I did. And initially I was thinking of doing it just as a means of, creating a painting to go on my wall that, was like a painting that I saw that I appreciated and enjoyed. But in doing so, I found the freedom that Thomas had been asking me about, and that most artists experience when they create their art in that moment. And so it turned into, quite honestly, a therapy for me. And so I still continue. In fact, our recording studio doubles also as my art studio. In fact, it's It's the second bedroom in my house that I converted from just storage into a working art studio. And then when we started the podcast, we set aside a little corner specifically to accommodate the podcast setup. And so that's kind of my story on abstract art and my journey to get to a point where I actually have sold paintings. And I have paintings hanging in a local gallery in town and one in one of our downtown restaurants that is enjoyed by patrons nightly, I guess. I don't know. You're just sitting there literally doing color by numbers on an iPad, which is not coloring even. It's just tapping where the numbers go.
I am painting right now.
And
this is abstract.
There's nothing that you are doing. It is literally paint by numbers, but it's on an iPad, so all he's having to do is just tap where the number goes.
So I got to find the number.
Oh, so really it's more of a seeking. It's like
a Where's Waldo for color.
Yeah, sure. Okay, tell yourself that.
Well, you tell yourself that your abstract art is actually like
art.
Explain what it is to me. Okay, look. Background on this one. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't see it. I don't get it. So Brandon has been trying to convince me that what he paints is art, and it is. But like Thomas, we were talking about earlier today, before we went grocery shopping. Like seriously, so if an elephant gets some paint on its trunk and sneezes at you, is it art?
Well, I don't know. You tell me, since you're the one who owns a couple of those paintings.
No. I have elephant trunk prints. I don't have where he sprayed it on me.
That's not what that one is, where it goes up.
No, that's the trunk. Just a trunk print.
Put the iPad down, man, and talk.
I am talking while I'm doing this. So, I don't understand. Luca, stop licking my toes. I mean, keep on going, dog. Keep on going. But it's like a little massage for your feet. I don't understand it. I've never have. So then, according to you, what is art? I don't know the definition of art. That's why we're here.
Well, if you don't know the definition of art, then how can you say what art is not?
Because I'll know it when I see it. So why don't you tell me what your definition of art is? And let's not make this you try to convince me, but let's make this a you try to convince me.
Well, no.
Teach me. Educate me.
Well, but before we get to that, I want to really drill down on what is your definition of art, though, because you have plenty of art pieces in your house that I'm assuming you consider those art, right?
No, they're just wall decoration.
So you don't consider any of the stuff that you have hanging up on the walls art? The painting of Ophelia in the dining room.
That is not my stuff. That is Thomas's stuff.
Okay, well then
those weird paintings are his.
Then
what I consider art is the cartoon picture of Phoebe that someone painted or drew.
I thought Thomas did that.
No.
The one in the guest bedroom?
God, no. I'm talking about the one that's in the living room.
Oh, the caricature.
Yes.
Oh, well, what? Okay, but what do you consider? What is art that you appreciate? Let me ask you that.
Comic books.
Okay, and you recognize that is art, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then why is it that you have difficulty conceding that abstract art is art?
I'm not. I'm saying I don't understand it.
Okay, well, but that's just to be clear, that's not what you said earlier.
Well, I'll take that back then. I stand corrected.
So you concede that it is art. You just say you don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't appreciate it. I don't see the appreciation factor in it.
Okay. Well, then let me ask you this. Do you find beauty in a sunset?
Sometimes. It depends on the sunset.
Okay.
But your abstract stuff that you do is not a sunset.
No, it's not. Well, that one right there is, but...
Which one?
That little one, right directly under the light.
Yeah.
So, okay, to try to define abstract art is very... clinical. No, it's very clinical. So, abstract art by definition is art that is created by essentially either not attempting to represent anything in nature or reality, and that's considered non-objective art or non-representational art, or it is a form of art that does intend to represent something in nature or in reality, but in a distorted sense. So think Picasso.
Right. And I guess that, I don't want to say that's what I guess picture it, and what I have the issue with is that it is not realistic. Like, does that make sense? Like, I want to see the realism in it if I'm looking at something.
Okay.
So like we went to the art gallery last week, right?
Mhm.
In Shreveport.
Oh, please. You went to go get your car fixed.
Yeah. And I had to waste time. So I went to the art gallery, and she rightly pointed out, you're not here to waste time. You're here to explore and to learn.
You told the lady that you were there to waste time?
Yeah, I did.
I bet she tore you apart.
She's like, well, you're not wasting time when you come here. You're here to get cultured.
Exactly.
And
clearly it didn't take.
And I left, and I appreciated a lot of stuff that was in there.
Okay, then let's focus on the term appreciation. So you don't appreciate the work that I do. And I don't mean that in a personal dig either.
I don't understand it.
Okay, but can you appreciate it?
Some of it, yes.
Okay. So what's the sum that you can appreciate versus the sum you can't?
Well, the one that I had you do for me and Thomas for our anniversary, I appreciate that one.
Okay.
But I told you specifically what I wanted, and you created it.
Right. That's called a commission. There's nothing less abstract about it because of that.
Okay.
So what you liked about, let me ask you that instead of, I feel like I'm leading the witness or something here. So what do you like about that painting? You said you appreciate it, but what do you like about it?
I guess in my head, when I asked you to create that, it was how I envisioned it. Like, it was my idea,
mm-hmm.
and like kind of where I gave you like what I wanted to see in it,
mm-hmm.
and you created it. So you took what I wanted, or you took what I saw in my head and turned it into something physical.
Okay. That's valid. So, and to be specific, just for the audience, so you asked for me to do this abstract painting using the colors of your wedding.
Yes.
So
yes, and I wanted the font, like a type font of our names and our wedding date, or wedding year, I should say, with it. And I envisioned like the typewriter font, because I told you that's what I wanted.
Right.
And then I just kind of gave you the I forget what I saw. I think you had done one of
I did a study,
and
a miniature study.
And I said, I like that, but can you do it in our paint colors? Like, that's what I want. And then add some stuff to it. And you were like, yes. So
yeah. So that process, was just, that's a common process that artists will do for commissions. They get the client's ideas, they make a mock-up and get their opinions before they move forward with the full or final piece. But that was a painting for a specific purpose.
Right. So then you give me another painting of Lily, my West Highland Terrier puppy, that I guess you pulled from a picture.
Yeah.
And it has some crazy weird stuff going on in the background and stuff like that. And I guess that interpretive stuff right there is the stuff I don't want to say I don't appreciate. It's just the stuff that I would not pick for myself. I guess it's not an appreciation. I guess it's more of a you like or you don't like kind of thing.
Right.
It's just not my cup of tea.
Let's tackle a couple of things here. So because this was kind of the factor that got me started on this journey for myself, is there any aspect of abstract painting that you see and you say, well, what does that matter? I could do that myself.
Well, I mean, some of the stuff people do, I guess I could. Like you said, the distorted stuff, I don't have my mind operates too much in realism to be able to create something like that.
Okay. You're talking like the Picasso type.
Yes. Like the distorted stuff. Like I do not see why people are like, oh my God, this is so great. Like I look at that and I'm like, this is just downright stupid. Like, I don't understand why people appreciate that kind of stuff because I don't see it. But like I said, my mind is more of a realist.
Right. Well, and keep in mind, there's a distinction between liking something and appreciating it. And appreciating it is understanding the understanding the work, the technique, the effort and energy that goes into creating something, and appreciating the fact that the artist put forth that effort.
Well, I don't appreciate stuff like that.
Okay. So for you to be able to appreciate something, you also have to like it.
Yes.
Okay. So I would
argue, am I alone in that? Like, is that a
No. I would just say that's the distinction between like if you had ever taken like literally an art appreciation course.
well, I took one. I just didn't appreciate it.
But that's the thing. Because see, this is something that I run into, especially with teaching theater, is, we teach theater appreciation. With that, we're not necessarily trying to get students to do theater, but we're trying to get students to understand it enough to appreciate it to where they can see. I always give the example of this. I despise opera. I do not like it. I would rather watch paint dry, literally.
And you've done that, I believe. You've done that.
And so, I don't like opera, but I understand the technique behind it and the talent that it takes to do it enough to where I can say, okay, yeah, bravo to her. It still doesn't make me like it, but I can appreciate it.
Well, okay. So let me just tell you, like going through the art gallery, right?
Uh-huh.
They had a special exhibit on European art on one wing, and then they had American art on the other wing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, like, how, like, you're going through an art gallery, and then you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I'm just going to skip through a couple of things because it just doesn't seem interesting to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's kind of like, well, we spent a lot of time on the European side.
Okay.
Because there was a lot, and I don't want to say European side, it was more of like an Eastern side because they had some Japanese artists in there, and some older artworks from like 1815 and stuff like that.
Right.
And there were 2 tapestries on the wall from like early century, like I think
like Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I appreciate that stuff. Like I looked at that and I got close to it and kind of appreciated the artistry of having to do it and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And taking the time of not only just stitching everything, but, on the quilts, but, or the tapestry, I should say, that they were rugs.
Mm-hmm.
But the artwork that was displayed, I studied that, like looking at it. There was one that was a sketch. It was of a lion. There were 4 different 4 views, I guess, from the lion's head that was in there. But I kind of stared at it. Like it kind of captivated me.
Yeah.
And in that end, when it did that, like for me, that was, I appreciated the artist's talent in drawing that, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we got to the American side of everything, after about the 5th one, it was kind of like, you've seen one, you've seen them all kind of thing.
Well, what were they doing? What types of paintings were they?
So the American artwork was a lot of landscape, American frontier landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were, I guess, political figures.
Mm-hmm.
So those kind of historical pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very not, I don't know. It's like you just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't spend a lot of time looking at those and studying those.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because growing up as an American, like you see a lot of that growing up.
Right. It's the sort of thing that your grandmother had in her living room.
Right. And so
where
you're
you
just
weren't
kind of
allowed
like,
to sit on the furniture.
you're just kind of like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if that was the reason why or not. So I guess the exposure, because we don't really see a lot of European artwork where we're at, I guess, here in town, like especially in our region of East Texas.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was the lack of exposure to that made me kind of interested in that. But I do remember like the Japanese artist that I saw, his artwork, there were several pieces. Hold on, I do have his name. The Japanese artist was Hiroshi Yoshida. 1876 to 1950. So he was a 20th century Japanese painter and woodblock printmaker.
Okay.
And just some of his artwork, I mean, it was just, I don't know, it was just captivating. Like here's one of the pieces right here.
Yeah. Is that a woodblock print?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of different things. And I guess for me back then, it's like I'm thinking like, okay, so this was done like in the 1920s,
right?
1910s, because he died in 50, so 1930s. But just, we have so many tools to our avail now.
Yeah.
To think about how they did this then with limited tools.
And
I even said this when we were looking at stuff, is that the artistry itself, the skill required to do something with limited tools like they did, we don't have that anymore, or we don't use as much of that as we could,
Yeah.
I guess. And so that's kind of where it was, I guess, for me. That's why I like that stuff.
Yeah. In other words, back in 1898, you couldn't go down to Michael's or Hobby Lobby and, buy your brushes and paint.
Correct.
You had to mix them by hand from pigment. I mean, that's like acrylic paint wasn't even invented yet. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think, I'm totally with you on that. And I have a very wide appreciation for art. But I mean, I also totally understand the mundane aspect of landscapes and nature painting and stuff like that. Some of them can speak to me, and some are, just like, that was in my grandmother's dining room.
And I guess that's a lot of the American work that are displayed in museums and stuff like that is very,
Mm-hmm.
if it was painted in 1876, that's really kind of where America was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't many things, I guess, that they could paint or have inspiration from. So it's like I said, it's not that I just didn't study it. I didn't appreciate it. I can say I didn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
I just didn't.
Well, and in turn to go back to the main topic of our discussion of abstract art, one of the reasons, I mean, it's important that you bring up the modernity of our artist practices and the techniques that we use today and the tools and the paint that we use today. That kind of goes along with why abstract art developed in the first place. Because really, abstract art was something that came along as a result of
lack of tools.
No, the opposite. As a result of photography.
Okay.
So no longer did you have you could take a picture of a person. You didn't have to rely on a master artist, to paint their portrait. So much so that now it's just a novelty to have a portrait painted. And so instead, artists started branching out into these other ideas of what to paint.
Let me ask you a question really fast.
Yeah.
You just said it was a novelty of having a painting done of people. Is it seen as a status symbol nowadays?
I think it's always been seen as a status symbol because it's not cheap.
Right.
To have your portrait commissioned is not a cheap endeavor. So I think it always has been a status symbol and still is today, So I do think in terms of just that alone, portraiture, is and has always been, because they make it a big deal when the official national portrait of the president is unveiled, when a new official portrait of the king or, before her death, the queen was unveiled. That was a big deal, but like I said, for the everyday person, you either didn't have that luxury or, once the camera came along, you could take a photo. And so artists like Picasso said, well, okay, it's been done. We can never be as good as a photograph, or so he thought. But now we have these artists who are doing ultra realism, which is mind boggling to me, but I digress. And so abstract art was sort of.
You undress. What?
Digress. But yeah, so abstract art kind of came about as a result of that. So instead of focusing on trying to capture an image in realistic detail, they instead decided to set out to capture emotion in some sort of visual representation. And now, to an extent, that was always a motivation of artists, even when they were painting realism. But the difference is here, that was all they were concerned with. Think about okay, Michael's a big Disney fan. Think about Fantasia. Okay. Fantasia is kind of intended as a visual representation of the music pieces that they accompany.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So to tell their story in a different medium.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's kind of what abstract art seeks to do with emotion, it's abstract art, non-concrete, non-realistic visual representations of abstract concepts. Emotions, thoughts, big ideas. Go ahead.
That might be why I don't like Fantasia.
Oh, you don't like Fantasia?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No. Maybe I just don't understand the emotion behind it, or the
Or maybe you're just an automaton who doesn't understand emotion at all.
well, I'm not going to argue that.
No, but a couple of things like so you said that it's not for you so much an idea of, well, it's not art because I could just do that myself.
No, because there are some things I'm like, I can't do it, and I don't want to do it.
Okay. For a lot of people, that is the argument. They say, I could just do that myself. I could paint a canvas solid blue and call it a day myself.
But see, I don't see that as being art, though. Like, I don't see a canvas being painted solid blue as just art. That's just a blue canvas.
Okay. But two things there. Number one, it's not just about a blue canvas. It's an idea behind it that is represented through that specific, and often, I would argue, a very specific shade of blue, and what that means to the artist. To those who argue, I could do this myself, the counter argument is, but you don't.
Yes.
If it were something that mattered to you and something that meant something to you, then you would.
Okay.
And so that's part of the argument right there when people look at the simplicity of it, or say, oh, well, that's just smearing paint across
a canvas
in a specific direction or something.
Or like those paintings of like just the red dot, like, or the, whatever dot. I guess for me, if you're an artist, I shouldn't have to go searching for the meaning behind what you're painting or what you're doing, your artwork is.
Oh,
what?
I'm just doubting you, but go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I just think I shouldn't have to go searching for it very difficultly on stuff like that. Like if it's just a blue canvas, you said that, oh, well, it might be that it's the artist's interpretation of whatever, and that blue canvas means something, represents something. Well, why do I have to go searching for it?
Okay, well, I would ask you to pose that same question to your husband about literature.
And I do, believe me, I do.
Okay, it's the same thing though, is my point. It's studying a work. So, okay, I have to give this spiel to my students all the time. So whenever we study a work, there are three main levels that we can study within it. Okay, when we're studying a work of art, whether that be a piece of literature, a painting, a sculpture, a play, whatever. Okay. And that's text, context, and subtext. The text is the thing itself, whether that is a literal text, as in a book or a poem, or if it is a painting or a sculpture or a play performance.
Okay.
Context is the context of it. In what situation was it created? What was going on politically at the time, the history behind it, that sort of thing. The subtext is the deeper level of meaning that's intended for the work.
Okay.
So it's the subtext where really the meat and potatoes of it all comes along, and also, which is often the most difficult for a reader or viewer or whatever to understand. But that's where you have different, and this is getting into a lot of critical theory that goes a lot deeper than what our discussion today is intended to be. But essentially, there are a lot of different theoretical approaches you can take to studying any of these works that would involve, in some cases, the work having a clear, single, definitive meaning, or in the world of literature, it would be what's called reader response, which means it's up to the reader, the viewer, the audience, whatever, in terms of what experiences they bring to the table in interpreting the work. And that is often the case with abstract art today. Usually you don't have, I won't say exclusively, but a lot of times you have artists who don't want to explain their work. They don't want to say what their intended meaning was behind the work because they consider it their personal meaning to them, but it's open to interpretation from the viewer as to what the viewer finds meaning in the work.
Okay, so let me just stop you there.
Yeah.
So in literature, you were saying, so I am married to an English teacher who is, by everything that we know of him, is a reader. He is a definite literature reader person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's done 100 books so far. We're only in the end of September. He's done 100 books so far this year.
Read 100 books.
Yes. So when I read, I don't read it for secret meanings or
Right.
deep dives into the words. I want it to be what it says on the page is kind of what it is.
Right.
Which I guess in what you were just saying about artwork is the same thing. When I look at something, I want it to be given to me. I don't want to have to work for it.
Right. And that's the thing. You can, going back to the 3 levels of study, text, context, and subtext, you can appreciate that work on any of those 3 levels. And that may be what draws you in. The text itself, in terms of the painting, maybe what draws you in. There are lots of paintings that are created that are intended to be what would traditionally be considered ugly. And that's because they have some other specific meaning that they are trying to express through that piece of art. Now, for me, in the artwork that I create, I'm always seeking to create beauty. And now, whether somebody else agrees with my vision of beauty or not, that's up to them.
Okay.
But, when I'm creating a painting, I'm always aiming for beauty. And then I'm usually looking to manipulate 2 things. Well, to manipulate one thing and to express another.
Okay.
I'm usually looking to manipulate texture. A lot of my paintings, if you look around, unless like this one that hangs right above us, that one was intended to be completely free of texture. I was going for a completely flat surface.
Okay.
Okay. The one above my head here, you've got paint that sticks up from the canvas. It creates a texture. Okay. Just like the one above your head. I like working with texture and seeing what that creates that wouldn't necessarily be easily replicated if we were to just take a picture of the painting. You know what I'm saying? You need to see it in 3 dimensions to fully appreciate it.
Okay.
And then one thing that I'm usually trying to express in my paintings is a sense of movement. So you'll see a lot of times I'll have, like in this one here, I've got lines that come off the canvas. In my mind, that's showing movement. It's moving away from the center of the canvas and moving off towards the canvas. So I see it almost as if it's a snapshot of moving objects.
Okay, to me it looks like just kind of paint dribbling down.
Well, and that's the style of movement that I was mimicking. What he's describing is a very structured, thin, rectangular object that carries all the way off. And we'll post a picture of this one on our Instagram for visual
reference.
For reference. There we go. But yeah, that's essentially, without actually doing a drip of paint on the painting, which I do frequently in paintings. I wanted to represent that in a geometric way with these very thin rectangles. In other words, you got it. That's the intention I meant by that.
Okay. I like I said, I just don't understand some.
And that's the thing. It's just like
I don't appreciate some forms of music.
Well, exactly. And I was going to say, it's like, go back to novels for a second. There are
definitely don't appreciate some of the stuff he reads.
That and I'll admit, I'm not a big fan of what Thomas likes either. He likes mostly fantasy fiction. I find world building and fantasy mind numbing. I don't care that the trees have
eyes,
fluorescent neon purple leaves, stuff like that. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Move on.
So when I read a book, I read the dialogue.
Yeah.
I'm not reading the scenery aspect of it. Like you just said, to the world building. I'm not there for that. I want to see the dialogue and the interaction between the people and the character development. I don't want to see the world building itself. So when I read books, and the books that I read, again, are comic books, so there's a lot of character development in those books.
Right.
And that the world is built through picture already for you to see visually. Like I don't have to imagine what it looks like because it's already there for me. But when I read novels, which is rare,
yeah.
But the novels that I read have a lot of that stuff where the background is built and the settings are built through words. And I usually just kind of skip over that stuff and go right for the dialogue.
those English majors around you would argue that you're missing a great deal of what's being told in the story by skipping all that stuff. But I understand where you're coming from.
I'm okay with that because I still get the story out of it.
Yeah.
I'm there for the relationships of the characters, not the setting.
So what I want to do next is I want to talk about and show you some of the artists that I appreciate the most in terms of abstract art.
Are you going to get my impression of this?
No,
Or my reaction?
Yeah, I want to see what you have to say. And,
okay.
What you think about. So one of the artists that I really like.
That looks like paint swatches.
Okay. And I'll put these up on Instagram too for reference. This is, and I don't know how to say the title because it's in Latin, but this is a painting by Barnett Newman, Vir Heroicus Sublimis.
Okay.
We'll go with that. And it's a very large.
Is it 3 pieces, like 2 side pieces and 1 main piece?
Oh, like a triptych? No.
Yes.
It's all.
Or is it 1 piece and it's lined to make look like it's 3 pieces?
Yeah, those are painted lines. Here, let me show you with a person standing next to it compared to it.
Okay. It looks like a red carpet hanging up on the wall.
Yeah, it's red. It's a canvas with a red background and then these vertical lines of different colors. One's like a dark brown, a couple are a cream color, dividing the canvas evenly.
Yeah.
So this doesn't say anything to you, right?
No.
Okay. It speaks to me. I don't know.
What does it say?
Well, and that's the thing. And I say that, in colloquial terms, when we talk about a painting speaking to somebody, we mean it elicits a reaction.
Okay. So again, what's the reaction to it?
And that's the thing. I don't even really know how to describe it, which is what a lot of people say about paintings that they appreciate is sometimes they can attach an emotion to it. I just find it beautiful. The depth of the red, the fact that it's not just solid flat red across, but you can see that there are variations in the color. The vertical lines, he actually painted these a lot and he called them zips, but to me, it also evokes that sort of sense of movement. And you'll see in a lot of my paintings, I use similar lines, vertical and horizontal, to convey, like this one over here and the one over your head, which is just like it. I use those to convey that sense of movement.
Okay, but there was no movement in that. It literally looked like a big red rectangle. It looked like 3 pieces. Like it looked like there was.
Right. Well, I mean, how do you capture movement in a still image anyway?
How much is that painting worth?
Oh, I don't know. It hangs in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, MoMA.
Exactly. That's, I guess, where I have issues. So
you have issues with that being valuable?
Who looked at that and said, aha, there's something there? What? That's a whole different podcast. Never mind.
Well, but, okay, here's another Barnett Newman, okay? It's just lines and the shadow of a line, on a canvas. Mm-hmm. There's nothing represented there. Here's one where the canvas is the zip, as he called them. Over here's a picture of him standing next to it. You see what I'm talking about, though? Mm-hmm. That's all there is to it. And it's...
What he's showing me right now is a white canvas.
No. This is not this is the canvas. See, that's them standing between the
So then the canvas itself is maybe...
It's like a couple inches
6 inches wide
by 6 feet or so.
Yeah, that's basically a red line with a black border around it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And well, to me, one of the things that strikes me about that one is the uniqueness of it. How many times have you seen a canvas done like that before? Never. And that's also what makes it difficult for artists like myself to be original in painting abstracts, is that it's all been done. The people like Barnett Newman, like Mark Rothko and Jackson Pollock, they were the pioneers who first did this stuff. And now that they've done it, if you do something similar, you're just kind of seen as a Newman copycat or a Pollock copycat. But that's where you have to find the meaning in it. Okay, Jackson Pollock, right?
It sounds like a fish.
The spatter painter.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, I don't find most of his paintings beautiful. And in fact, it wasn't until I started exploring them further. In fact, there's bits of trash embedded in them from his studio, and he left them in there intentionally to to add to the context of it. So there are bottle caps that are embedded in solidified paint. There are cigarette butts that are embedded in the paint. I don't like that. I don't want it hanging on my wall.
Do you understand it though?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Oh, see, I don't. That's trash.
Because like I said, to me, it adds to the context of it. Now, this is Ad Reinhardt. I really like the geometric types of paintings like this. And that's something that you see me do a lot with is incorporating geometric shapes and stuff. And then, oh, here we go. Okay, Mark Rothko. Mark Rothko was a famous painter in the mid 20th century who painted what he called color fields, which were just large blocks of color, but not geometric blocks on other areas of color. So this is a Mark Rothko.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mark Rothko's paintings have been famous for evoking tears from the viewer when they see them in person.
They need to get on medication.
So can we please not be condescending at least when we're talking about people who appreciate art?
That you're being drawn or brought to tears because you see something like this?
You've never been brought to tears by anything beautiful before, or something you found beautiful?
I guess it's all in the eyes of the beholder.
You've never been brought to tears by a sunset?
No.
Oh, well.
But you said earlier that I don't have emotions, so you know
this is true. But the last time I went to New York back in May, back in May, I went. Now, granted, I was chaperoning a school trip, so it's not like I had all the free time in the world. But while we were at MoMA, I went and I sat on a bench in front of one of the Mark Rothkos. Because I had never really studied them in person before, and I'd heard this. Now, was I moved to tears? No. Other people have been moved to tears not because it was beautiful, but because they found it horrific on some level. It evoked some sort of horrifying emotion for them.
But I guess what you just showed me, I don't see it. I don't know. I don't know.
I think basically, you look at artists like that, Pollock.
Let me ask you this question here. Okay, so looking at this stuff, who says that this is worth the money behind it?
The people willing to pay it.
Okay.
That seems to be what you're hung up on. Okay. Do you have a problem with a Picasso? No, bad example. Sorry. Do you have a problem with a painting by Leonardo da Vinci selling for millions of dollars? Mona Lisa guy.
Well, I mean, I don't understand Mona Lisa, but some stuff, yeah, I do have not a problem, but I don't understand why it's as valuable as it is.
Okay, but that's the thing. The value is literally based on what somebody is willing to pay for it. They're literally sold at an auction where somebody says, I'll pay 1 million. No, I'll pay 2 million. So that's what determines the value of it, really.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's just like with my paintings. I'm a very early artist. I'm not even trying to make a career or anything out of it. I'm just doing it in my free time when I can.
Yeah.
So the value of my paintings is dictated based on what somebody is willing to pay for it.
I mean, yeah. Okay.
So if you look at it in terms of specifically that, you're kind of going down a rabbit hole that nobody can really explain because it's based on markets.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who understands stocks could, I have the same difficulty understanding why a stock can be worth as much as it is. Because, I mean, I get that it's a share of ownership in the company or whatever, but
yeah.
But on that same hand, for a lot of people who do pay the money that they pay for art, it's because it's an investment, because they know it's going to appreciate in value.
How do you know that, though? Looking at something, how do you know that's what it's going to be? How do you know, looking at a painting, right, or looking at a piece of art, you said it's an investment.
Yeah.
How do you know it's going to be worth anything at all in the future?
Okay.
At that point, it's a gamble.
No. I get it. So, number one, if it's an already successful artist who is still working, that artist is going to die at some point.
Okay.
So once that artist dies, that means they're producing no more new work. So that automatically drives up the value of all their existent paintings because there's never going to be any more of them.
So what you're saying is I need to go ahead and buy one of your paintings because at some point you're going to die and it'll be worth more than it is today.
Well, hopefully I'll outlive you. That way you won't really benefit from it. But yeah, sure. With that example, yeah, if I were going to be some famous artist someday
But again, how do you know you're not going to be? How do you know you are? Because if you said that it's worth what someone's willing to pay for it, then it's just luck of the draw. And like I said, it's random. It's a gamble.
It's not random. It's like I said, it's based on what somebody is willing to pay for it. So
if I win the lottery,
okay,
and I buy one of your paintings,
okay,
I'm willing to spend $1 million on it.
I wouldn't sell it to you for $1 million.
No. But if I'm willing to spend that much money on it,
okay,
does that then drive up all your other paintings?
Yes. It does. And again, that goes back to the market, the literal market of art. If I publicize that one of my paintings sold for $1 million, yes, all my other paintings are going to go up in value.
Then people are going to look at that and be like, what was he thinking paying that much money for this?
No, because
Okay.
what is somebody thinking paying that much money for a canvas that's just a solid blue color?
Hey, I'm thinking, what are they thinking?
That's what I'm saying, but somebody does. But you see what I'm saying, though? That's what determines the value of it. But again, that's math. That's stuff that does not compute up here for me. I don't do math, and especially if that math is money related. What?
I feel like we've just kind of completely gone off topic.
We
and
have.
everything.
We've gone, and who knows how much of this is actually going to make it into the episode. But that's the thing. When you talk value, that's a whole other ball game that has nothing to do really with what the painting even is of.
Okay, well then let me go ahead. Let me edit my previous comments up.
Okay.
I think that's my problem, is that I don't understand what people see in certain artworks and why they're willing to spend the money they're willing to spend on it, because I don't see what they see in it.
Okay. The same could be said of somebody who looks at an issue of the first Superman comic book
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't see why somebody's willing to pay thousands of dollars or tens of thousands. I don't know how much it would be worth.
Millions.
Okay. Why they would be willing to pay millions of dollars for an original copy of that.
I agree with you.
But again, that's because that's all dictated by a market of who's willing to pay or how much a person is willing to pay. Because it literally is. It's auctions. It's literally people in a room and now online saying, I'll pay this much. No, I want it. I'll pay this much. It's just a matter of ownership and who's willing to pay how much for ownership of that piece.
Okay.
So then is that your major complaint with abstract art, that it's something that you see as not representing anything and it's drawing millions of dollars?
It's not I don't have an issue with it. I mean, more power to the people that want to pay for it. It's just I myself wouldn't see it. I wouldn't do it.
But like you said, you also wouldn't do that for a painting that would you do that for the tapestry that you saw in the gallery the other day?
Would I pay money for it?
Yeah.
No. Like if I had the money, would I pay money for it? No, I would not.
Okay, well then I'm very confused. So we're talking about
I appreciate what it took to make it,
yeah.
but I would not. It was not something I would display and put up in my home or display as a collection piece.
Okay, so then number one, I think we totally need to take price versus value out of the equation.
Okay.
Because like I said, that's a whole other topic. So then back to the question that we started with, is it art? It goes back to how you define art. So how do you define art as a consumer?
I don't know. Like I really, it's hard for me to define. I'd have to think about that.
All right. So what makes art? Okay. And particularly with abstract art, what makes abstract art art? That's the question at hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So number one, intention. The
Okay.
artist has to have some kind of intention behind it. So like I said, for me, that means beauty, texture, and movement.
Okay.
Okay. So the intention behind it could involve meaning. But like we said, that meaning could be something specific that the artist has created that he or she intends the world to get from it. Or it could be something that, like I said, many artists do, where they don't want to explain a painting. They want the viewer or the consumer to find their own meaning in it, to figure it out for themselves on their own level with their own experiences, bringing their own experiences to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, like I said, it needs to either elicit a response or speak to people.
Okay.
Okay. So like I said, for me, that's when I create a painting, I don't mean this to sound egotistical, but it's not me, it's the paint. It's impressing me when I make a mark with, I don't like painting with brushes as much because I don't like the mark making that it creates.
Mm-hmm.
I like painting with palette knives or different objects that are used for different. Sometimes I'll use a trowel.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the patterns or not pattern, even lack of pattern, but the shapes, the splotches, the colors that occur when you make some of these marks and you create some of these gestures on the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me feel something. Okay, here, perfect example. Hang on. So I just handed Michael a small little 5x7 canvas that I painted a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was painted with blue and white and black. And does it look like anything to you? And to clarify, I did not intend for this to look like anything.
Yeah, it does.
What?
A dragon.
Okay. When I did this, it immediately looked to me like a betta fish.
No, it looks like a dragon.
And part of that was probably influenced because, I've seen betta fish in these exact colors before.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I see the head down here and the fins there and there.
Mm-hmm.
But this, that was not I was in no way intending this to look like anything.
So it's
But
almost like cloud art.
in a way, yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the point that I'm getting at with this, is that there are some things that you can do with abstract art by pure chance
Mm-hmm.
that are far more akin to the beauty found in nature than if you set out to try to replicate the beauty found in nature. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So this is sort of like, I don't know, then there's probably a term already for this, but this is sort of like an organic style of painting
Mm-hmm.
where I'm just letting the paint do stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever happens with it happens. And I find, like, especially the beating of colors and stuff through here,
Mm-hmm.
I find beauty in that. It looks like light reflecting on water or
Okay.
something like that. Even though that's not at all what I was attempting to paint. I wasn't attempting to paint anything. I was attempting to spread paint on a canvas and see what happened with the colors.
All right, Bob Ross.
So, well, no, but Bob Ross is very specifically aiming to paint nature scenes and landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my intention at all. My intention is to create something beautiful with some specific techniques of movement with different painting instruments.
Right.
So that's the intention for me as an artist, at least. But the intention behind it is what's important. That's what makes it art. In other words, it's not, your elephant just spraying paint onto a canvas.
Mm-hmm.
It's done with intention. Now, is the elephant canvas with the sprayed paint beautiful? Yes, I think it is. And it also achieves that same goal that I'm setting out to achieve in painting in this style.
Right.
To create something beautiful by chance, I guess you could say.
Right.
Even though that's not what all of my paintings are like. All of my paintings are not in this particular style. So ultimately, that's what, it has to have intention, and it has to have some sort of, it has to elicit some sort of response.
Okay. I understand that.
Well, that's what art is. Not just abstract art. That's what any art is. All right. So as the final segment for this episode, what we're going to do, Mike, and this was Michael's idea, he has decided to challenge each other with coming up with 3 examples of the type of artwork that we like, that we find beautiful. Yeah, that we appreciate.
Yep.
So Michael has found 3 artists or images or styles, and he's going to show those to me, and then I'll show him some of the examples of what I like.
Okay, and so these are going to be honest reactions of the other person, because
Brandon
has not seen any of mine, and I haven't seen any of his.
No. Although
I will say I kind of suspect my reaction is going to be what it's going to be with your stuff, because I know your artwork taste. Okay. You ready? Okay. So,
for the record, I think I might surprise you with one of them.
Okay. Are you ready for my first one?
Yes.
So my first one, and this is not any particular artist. This is more of a style. I want to say a style or a theme, maybe.
Okay.
Because most of the stuff that's in this genre of artwork, I like almost everything that's in it.
Okay.
Okay. So because I can pull up more of the styles also. But what he's looking at is a picture of the St. Louis Cathedral in Jackson Square, New Orleans. And so I'm from New Orleans, so a lot of the artwork that comes from there, I just love.
Okay, so now I'm looking at a very different style of, I can't tell if it's painting or pastel, but a very different style of the same structure. Is still St. Louis Cathedral,
Right.
but in a very different style. So your appreciation for that is more of, really, I guess, more for you, a nostalgic aspect.
Yeah, there's definitely a connection there. So like I said, all of the artwork that comes out of New Orleans, there's different types of art, different types of styles. All of it is something that connects to me. And so I find it very, I don't know, I like that style of artwork. Anything that reminds me of home,
Yeah.
that's unique. So that's the first one. And so there's
Well, now let me ask you a question. Now, how would you feel if you had an abstract interpretation of Jackson Square?
never seen one. Is that a challenge for you maybe?
It might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take you up on that challenge.
Okay.
So that's my first one. Now my second one is it's a photograph.
Okay. I'm
And-
also a photographer as well. So
Yep. And it's a photograph that was taken in 1990. And so,
is this the tiny blue dot?
yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Now I had to look for it.
Yeah.
So what he's showing me is the photograph that was taken from the Voyager
Mhm.
space probe back in, I don't know when that was taken.
It was in 90.
Oh yeah, you said
It was
you
in
said
90.
1990.
Yep. So it
Of
was
the Earth from, what was the perspective?
It was taken 6 billion kilometers or 3.7 billion miles away from Earth.
What was that closest to at that time?
It was on the outer end of the solar system, so probably near Pluto.
Because isn't it the color strands through that? Isn't that the rings of Saturn or something? I think?
Let's see.
If you're not familiar with the photograph, Carl Sagan wrote a famous
Yeah.
poem, or not really poem, I guess. I guess it was a poem.
Mm-hmm. He wrote a book.
Oh,
He wrote a book in 94 called Pale Blue Dot.
Pale Blue Dot. Yeah, that's it.
And to me, it represents how big our worlds are to us in perspective personally, but then also how small and insignificant it is when you think of the bigger picture. Like we are just all on this tiny little blue dot.
So let me ask you a question, because as far as general photography goes,
Mhm.
it's not a great photograph.
No.
It's not, there's nothing clear about it. You have to search. Even now, though I'm familiar with the photograph, I had to search for the Earth, the pale blue dot
Mm-hmm.
in the photo. So it's the meaning and the significance behind it.
Yeah.
So then let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
For an abstract painting, if it signified something that was meaningful to you and you knew the meaning behind the painting, would that increase your appreciation for it?
Possibly, which is why I'm going to challenge you to make an abstract artwork of Jackson Square, a scene from there, and we'll see.
Okay.
And the very last one, don't make fun of me.
No promises.
Mm.
Why would I make fun of you for that? It's the cover of the graphic novel version of The Death of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
You love comic books. Of
Mhm.
course you would like that.
But it's symbolic. If you look at the picture,
Yeah.
it's his cape
Mm-hmm.
that's tattered,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been attached to a piece of wood, which is representation of the rubble that was part of the destruction of the city.
And it's very sort of, kind of reminds me of the Iwo Jima
Mm-hmm.
flag photograph, but without the people in it.
Right. Right. And so that is just a picture of like Superman being representation of really the best part of a person.
Yeah.
And that represents like kind of the death of hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what, do you have any more? That was 3, but I mean, you can
No.
show me
No.
as many you want. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm getting from you is that
I need to
you're-
have an emotional connection to the artwork
Right.
to be able to connect to it.
and that's totally valid, and I totally appreciate that. I guess it just surprises me then that, and not these particular paintings specifically, but like I said about the Mark Rothko, about the Mark Rothko paintings, that, you know, the color field paintings that move people to tears when they say, have you ever just sat and studied an abstract painting?
No.
Well, maybe you should try.
I don't know if I have the patience for that though.
Well, no, it's not a matter of like studying like trying to find just looking at it for an extended period of time.
But you're making me. I think you want me to look at it to see if I can find a connection with it.
Sort of, yeah.
I don't know if I have the ability to do that.
Because and this is maybe going to sound conceited, and I don't mean it to be, but like the painting that I have hanging in my living room right now, the one that I did with the gold background and the blue and the white, I constantly find myself just staring at it. And it makes, I see different things in it. Sometimes I see a landscape. Sometimes I see a waveform, like in Audition when we're recording. Sometimes I see a forest,
like a scalar energy.
Yeah, or that. And I just I wonder if you just spent time with a painting.
See, but the thing is with that is that I don't know if I have the patience to clear my mind enough to be able to do that.
Well, and that's like I said, for me, and it's not something I sit down with the intention of doing. I just do it. I just look over and then I think about it and I just get lost in it for a couple minutes. Not like I'm staring at it for hours or anything.
I think it's just something I have to focus on if I want to do something like that. Maybe my mind is always going. So I need to stop and smell the roses, I guess, for lack of a better term, and just appreciate what's in front of me.
Okay. Yeah. So I've got 3 different artists. The first is just the same painting. So, and I think I mentioned him earlier, Pete Mondrian, who did the color block paintings.
Yeah, it was in that book from earlier.
So this first one is one of his, and I think it's just called Composition in Red, Blue, and Yellow.
Can't wait.
And the reason I like this is, well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I love the simplicity of it. I love that it looks like, it looks to me like a window, like a stained glass window.
Okay.
And it also, if you remember back in the 80s, Mondrian had a big renaissance kind of where it fit in with the 80s pop color type.
Well, and
things.
that's what that reminds me of. Something like that.
Yeah. And so that's, for me, that's why I like Mondrian, because I have a nostalgic attachment to his works, because I remember seeing them everywhere as a kid in the 80s.
Okay.
And so that's one of the reasons why I appreciate his work. So now the other 2 artists that I'm going to show you are contemporary artists. So the painting that I just showed you apparently made a record for selling for $51 million. And that here, for scale, that's how big it is.
That painting right there.
Yes.
Went for how much money?
I believe it was 51 million. Okay. It set a record. I didn't read in detail for what exactly the record was, but
I wish the people at home could see my face right now.
Well, I keep telling you we need to start doing video and go to YouTube, but
No, we're not there yet.
Anyway, but these next 2 artists are just artists that I follow. They're contemporary artists that I follow on Instagram, and their paintings don't sell for anything like that. They sell for hundreds and thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars.
Okay.
All right. So this first artist, his name is Jordan Tran. Okay.
Is it 2?
Yeah.
Put it back up. Let me see again.
I'm going to post the actual pictures.
I understand that. But okay.
Well, describe what you're looking at.
There are 2 square patterns next to each other. One looks like, honestly, it looks like a Polaroid photo, because it's got like a white frame around it, almost a frame around the internal square. And then the square that's on the left side of it looks like it was taken out of that internal square. Like it looks like
an inversion.
Yes. Like it was a cutout of that. With different colors, though, because the one on the right is darker at the top and then the other one is.
It's a gradient. So does that look like anything to you?
I mean, it's blue, so I'm going to either take sky and sea.
Right.
Sea on one side and sky on the other.
So what he's describing is this artist just does gradients of color. That's all he paints.
Well, I can do gradients of colors, but no one's going to buy it for $1 million or
That's
thousands.
smooth. I challenge you.
Well, I'm not an expert in gradients.
Well, clearly this guy is. That's the point. Okay. But I think his work is just absolutely, you don't find that beautiful.
Honestly, it looks like 2 squares with some blue gradient on it.
What about these? Same artist.
Oh, I gathered that. No. I
So
mean,
what?
they look like sunsets
Yeah.
and sunrises. But
well, you don't even think sunsets are all that pretty, though, do you?
no, like when we were coming back yesterday, you were taking pictures of the sunset, and I
Yeah.
was kind of like,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
I'm sorry.
I hurt for your heart.
What heart?
Exactly.
To be fair, I am the mean false, and Thomas is the nice false.
Damn. That, like, I just like I could stare at these, and this is the sort of painting that could make me weep if I stared at it long enough, probably.
I understand that. That's good.
Um,
Give me a picture of my puppies, and I'll cry all day long, though.
I did. You hate it.
Well, that's because it looks like it came out of the 1980s. It's not the best generation.
That was
decade,
the point. It was supposed to look like the 1980s.
but it doesn't go with anything in my house.
So the next artist that I'm going to show you, Drew Oshwat, and he does, like, I do some paintings like this, but not to the level of complexity that he does. I'm more, I like minimalism, but I really like his method.
Okay, wait, hold on. What is minimalism? Is that like just not as much detail?
Simple, yeah.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
that's minimal because it's a simple flat background. It's got just a few specific elements in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So his are more complex, but he uses dragging techniques.
With a knife or a brush?
Sometimes knives, sometimes just different things. Like
Okay.
I've started just using different things too.
Okay.
Anyway, okay, but he'll tape off his
Like sections.
Yeah, you hate this, and I think it's stunning.
Okay, let me explain this one to you. This is what I see. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah.
It looks like initial reactions from me.
Yeah.
Fear. Like, to me, it looks like it just pulls up fear, like an emotional, I guess, like a scary movie, like scared and fear to me. And I don't know if it's because it's the different shades of blue with the black, because like it looks like it's a rainstorm almost. Like I see rain, but it looks like something from a horror film for me.
Jesus. Okay.
Like it just, like I said,
For
I think
one, it's your wedding colors, so.
Well.
Oh my God.
No. I take that back.
We'll cut that part.
No, keep it in. I want people to know that I take that back.
For the sake of your marriage, we might want to cut that out.
No. I want him to know that I'm happily married. He is my perfect match.
Okay. No, I see this and I see like Winter Wonderland.
Let me see it again. I don't. I think it's because of the black. I think the black and the darker blues. I think that's where, especially like that big spot of black up at the top, it just reminds me of something like fearful, like
well, and that spot of black, if you look closely, is really just dark blue.
Well,
That's Prussian blue.
I just don't see Winter Wonderland, because for me, Winter Wonderland tends to be more of a lighter blue, some silvers, you know what I mean? Like snowy.
Yeah, this looks like snow to me.
Oh yeah, it doesn't to me. But then I'm from the South, so.
Okay, here's another one from him that's a little more. Okay, I'll do this one next because we'll go from here. Well, here's one that's very similar in color.
Okay, so with the addition of the yellow and the kind of turquoise and green, and then a little bit of beige on the top, and the darker colors is not so dark.
Mm-hmm.
Initial reaction is tropical.
Okay,
I think it's because of the yellow. And
okay,
does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it does have more of a those little. It adds a sense of light.
Yes.
To it.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't wait to see what you're going to say about this one then, because this one's very well here. His eyes just got as big as saucers.
Yeah. No. Mm-mm.
Hell.
Definitely demonistic.
Yeah.
There's
lots. It's again lots of silver and blue, but also with reds in it.
Yeah, and black right in the middle, and it's like that. Is that the circle? Is that representation of like a moon or something? Or,
yeah.
Okay. No, I see like an eyeball with the teeth and the mouth underneath it.
Oh,
which
wow.
is where the white and the black are. And I think because they're going up and down, like the way they are, the shape of that area, honestly, don't hate me, it reminds me of anger from Inside Out. Like we just finished watching Inside Out 2 last night, so maybe that's why. But when I see that, I just see the red invites anger, I guess.
Was that good, by the way? I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll show you one more from him that's a little more concrete. And honestly, I don't know what you're going to think about this one. I'm just going to, here.
Well, man, that's UFOs.
Okay. It's another one, similar technique, similar colors.
Well, no. Okay, so when you turned it around, it looked like UFOs coming at me because there was movement. But with this one, it looks like so towards the top, there's a moon, and it looks, I don't want to say mountains, it looks kind of like
crescent moon too.
Yeah, it looks like igloos or something, or some kind of landform
Mm-hmm.
that look like hills. And then there's darker blue and blacks with that area up top with, it looks like specks of paint, which represent, I guess, the stars in the sky.
Probably.
Okay. So to me, then it looks like not like an underground bunker, but like an underground facility where there are different layers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that reminds me of there.
It definitely has this stratification going on in it. It looks, what I see when I see it is a landscape with a body of water in the foreground, and the body of water is reflecting the mountains behind it.
Yeah.
But I can see how you get UFOs from it.
Okay, so did we explain, is it art? You did. You said that art is based on interpretation and based on personal opinion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then abstract art is art. If it's based on a personal opinion and based on your interpretation of it, each person's interpretation is going to be completely different.
Right.
Okay, so then I'm allowed to have my interpretation of it not being anything important, and you can have your interpretation of it being super important or likable, or even if it's not, at least it talks to you or whatever, it speaks to you when it doesn't do anything for me.
Right.
Okay, well then that's okay, right?
Exactly. That's all art.
Okay.
Art is intended to be liked by some and disliked by others. Otherwise, it wouldn't be, wouldn't be anything special about it.
Then we call this a draw that you like abstract art and I don't.
Oh, exactly. And that was never my intention, was to get you to like abstract art, but simply to defend it as art. In the spirit of tonight's topic, I definitely want to go with
arts and humanities.
Arts and entertainment.
It's arts and literature.
Correct. Okay. Arts and literature, even better. Hit me.
Which influential French novelist was a close friend of Paul Cézanne?
Oh, God. Speaking of modern art, oh, God, I can tell you that Paul Cézanne was an impressionist painter.
You should be proud that I actually pronounced that correctly.
Cézanne? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you took French in high school, though, didn't you?
Like 30 years ago.
Touche. French novelist. God. Cézanne was 1800s to 1900s, I think. Gonna go with the very gay Jean Genet.
No.
Who was it?
Émile Zola.
Never even heard of him.
Oh, okay. What diminutive French artist did Peter Sellers dress as in the 1967 film Casino Royale and Revenge of the Pink Panther?
Oh, was it Toulouse-Lautrec?
Yeah, I don't even know who that is, but yeah.
He was a dwarf.
Nope, ain't going there. What is the only nationality mentioned in the song The 12 Days of Christmas?
Oh, hold on. French hens. 3 French hens.
So French.
Yes.
That's correct.
I had
what
to go down.
cruel name is given to the overweight boy with glasses in Lord of the Flies?
Piggy.
What color was the hair of the girl known as Anne of Green Gables?
Red. Thomas would have killed me if I didn't get that one.
Which fictional character has been played by more actors than any other?
Which fictional character? Oh, James Bond?
Nope.
Oh, wait. Then don't let me... hold on. Fictional character has been played by more than any other...
Actor.
Doctor Who.
No.
Oh, who?
Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, okay. I was in the right genre at least the whole time. Science and nature?
Yes.
What are categorized as the biological class Aves? Aves.
Birds?
That would be my guess. Let's see. Yes, birds. What potentially fatal disease is also known as rabbit fever? Ebola, influenza, or tularemia?
Rabbit, R-A-B-I-D, or rabbit, R-A-B-B-I-T?
R-A-B-B-I-T, rabbit.
I want to say the last one.
Tularemia?
Yes.
You're right. What do most lobsters and crayfish do with their shell after it has molted?
What do you mean? What do they do with it?
What do they do with it?
I don't want to say they eat it, but possibly they eat it.
Yeah, they eat it. I
Well,
guess
I mean,
they are bottom
it's
feeders.
protein.
So if they're eating the rest of the stuff, I guess that's not that much of a departure. Which is the fourth planet from the sun? Oh, come on.
Mars.
Yes.
Reminds me of that red painting you made me look at.
What two metals form the alloy white gold?
Is this fool's gold or white gold?
White gold. So real gold, but white gold.
Well, gold would be one.
Yes.
No, it's not that.
Hmm.
It's not titanium, is it?
Mm-mm.
It's not tungsten either.
No.
It's nickel.
No.
Brass.
No. I'll tell you, it's the obvious one. Or it seemed obvious after I read the answer. I was like, oh, that makes sense.
What is it?
Silver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, last question. Where in the United States has the maximum wind speed been recorded?
It's a desert.
Mm-mm. That's what I was thinking too, but it's not.
It has to be on top of a mountain then. I don't know. Rockies.
Mm-mm. You never would have gotten this, I'm sure. I wouldn't have either. Mount Washington, New Hampshire.
Oh, what was the speed? Did they tell you?
No. Just tell me the answer.
Mount Washington, New Hampshire.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Oh, it was 231 miles per hour.
Huh.
Recorded on April 12th, 1934.
Interesting. All right. Well, that does it for episode
8.
8 from Art to Atoms.
I'm Michael Full. Oh, the Ultimate Curiosity Show.
And we are clearly very tired. So thanks so much for listening yet again this week.
Have a good week, everybody.
Stay tuned next week. Bye.
For what? What are they staying tuned
I
for?
don't
Another
know.
episode? We don't even know what it's going to be yet.
Yeah, we'll decide at some point in the future.
Oh, I just want to go to bed.
You still got to review the outro.
I just want to go to sleep. Go to sleep. You've been listening to From Art to Atoms, the Ultimate Curiosity Show, episode number 8. Your hosts are Brandon Shoemaker and myself, Michael Fultz. The show is produced by Brandon Shoemaker and is available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show to stay up to date on all of our latest episodes and news. If you have any questions, feedback, or suggested topics you'd like for us to dive into, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email us at FromArtToAtoms@gmail.com. We would love to hear from our listeners, and we value your input. Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on upcoming episodes and behind-the-scenes content. You can follow us on Instagram at From Art to Atoms. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platforms. Your support helps us reach even more interested minds like yours. Thanks for tuning in, and stay curious, everyone.